welcome back to Just Ranked Pod. The boys are back with you, and I am, of course, Dink, your host for tonight. We have Chris, Joe, and Jimmy. You can find all of our shows on, or all of our information on Just Ranked Pod, as all our links to all the socials, all the audio versions, the YouTube version. You can find us everywhere, guys. Tonight we are doing Canadian 80s songs from the 80s, from the country where Chris and I are from.
Oh, Canada!
Yes. Electric Circus, more of a 90s thing, but you know, yeah. So I'm pretty excited, not to quote Jimmy, but I'm very excited. Very excited to present my 20 songs and and to hear your 4. But anyway, without any more rambling, we'll start. So Joey, you take her away. Let's hear what the Americans have to say about Canada.
This is going to be probably the most American Canadian list you've ever heard.
Same.
I'm tend to kind of known to kill the list genre on this show. C 1971.
No judgments.
My number 4 favorite 80s Canadian artist is Corey Hart. Sunglasses at Night.
Wow.
You know, and this is kind of a surprise one because obviously everyone knows this song, right? And you're like, okay, and I'm kind of going through everything. And I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be this, and this. I'm like, and I even think about Corey Hart. I'm like, okay, yeah, he's got a couple hits in there. And I'm like, and I'm listening to everything. I'm like, you know, this song's very 80s, man. Like, it doesn't belong in any other genre. It still stands the test of time. It's still a damn good song, man. It's a damn good pop song. I still don't know why he wears his sunglasses at night.
I don't know if he ever stated exactly why he
wears. You know what? It's still, you know, I'm still wondering 40 years later. So, I mean,
it's to hide the visions in his head.
Right.
True.
It is an 80s song. It is still a great song. It's
a good album.
Like many of these songs, it was killed for Chris and I probably. Like it was
I still love it.
So much radio play up here. Like
that Boy in the Box album was great.
Yeah, it was great.
Boy in the Box. I think I like the song "Boy in the Box" better than "Sunglasses at Night," but personally,
yeah, I'm more of a Asian eyes kind of guy. But yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. And it
the other thing I like about too is that it's kind of that dark pop. You know, it's not exactly a happy pop song. It's not a depressing pop song, but it's like a dark tone to the music. You know,
the video had a lot of play. I'm sure it had a lot of play down there.
Night driving in the car. You know,
and he's got a really
song.
I think he has a very distinctive voice too. It's not a very, it's not.
Yeah. And quite honestly, I think you guys probably agree with this. I'm surprised. I don't know how big it was in Canada. I'm surprised he wasn't bigger and had more hits. Now, I guess I haven't looked. I probably should have. Did he write his own material? I think he did. I mean, a lot of artists back then did.
I think he did, or he had a hand in it anyway.
So, I mean, obviously, you're limited to one writer, which is whatever. And then, I mean, guy had 2 hits in the United States. Maybe 3.
He started really, really young too. Like, so not that I want to like take the spotlight of our podcast, but there's a Professor Rock does a really good episode with Corey Hart. He does a really good Corey Hart episode that I learned a lot from. Like, I saw it, and then Dink and I did a call like the next day, and I was talking about it. He goes, I just saw that too, and I didn't know this, and I didn't know that. Like, it opened our eyes to a bunch of stuff too. Like,
it was, and wasn't it this exact song? That again, I don't want
this album and this
Professor Rock, but his stuff. He couldn't finish it, and he went. Did he go to Europe and
he went to Paris? He went to France, or
finished,
something like that.
Because he wasn't happy with the remix or the original version, and wanted to get it right. And it worked. Obviously, if it cracked you guys, and that is a huge thing for Canadian artists, which will probably be a reoccurring theme here. Were they just big for us, or did they make it to you guys? I know you guys are on the border
here. Huge.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that song is absolutely huge. Like it's on every 80s list here, easily, for sure. And
really?
the thing
is that like 1985?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
84.
83,
84. Boy in the Box was.
It could have been 84 here. Then it could have been released in the States in 85.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it was 85 because 84 here, man. If we ever, I'm sure at some point we'll do a 1984 show because that show will be crazy because 84 has so much good pop music. And if we should do specifically pop because you have good pop music and you have great pop rock music, I think we should separate those.
Yeah, I agree.
Not to have a band meeting in the middle of the show, but I mean, 84 is so good. So yeah, but it's interesting. You said he came back and has had a problem with the mix because the song isn't overly complicated. It's obviously the keyboard part. It's his vocals. And a drum, the drum, obviously the drum beat, but it's not overly complicated song, but it's interesting when artists take longer on those simplistic songs. I don't want to call them simplistic like they're easy. I'm saying literally fewer parts.
Right.
That you almost appreciate the fact they take the time and at whatever point they finally go, that's it. And it's really just the keyboard. Let's be honest. When you think of that song, you think of that keyboard part,
Totally.
Right. And it's just a reoccurring keyboard part over and over again. It's really good.
It's a higher note in a minor chord, so that's where you get that that droning kind of feel. And I believe it's A minor.
Take that, Drake. I was wrong. It was El Presidente who choked first.
Son of a bitch. Right when I'm taking a drink from the new drink.
Good stuff.
It's called timing, bitches.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want the Canadian.
Good pull.
With my next picks, I really don't want my Canadian friends to hate me. I really don't. Because I know there's more than just like 5 Canadian bands. I mean, several of them have had hits here. You have
there's a shit ton.
Bryan Adams. You have Corey Hart. You have Rush. You have Michael J. Fox. He had a couple of hits here, right?
Michael J. Fox sings the blues.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
So when you hear my list, please feign my ignorance, but also say I did do a lot of research, but at the same time, I'm going with my favorite ones.
Yep.
So just
yeah, absolutely.
So after you hear my list, when I'm done here, you'll be like, wow, he fit Corey Hart in that. I'm proud of him because number 3 is Rush, Spirit of the Radio.
Yeah, I figured there was Rush coming at some point.
It's one of my favorite songs to play. It's not overly complicated, but I just love the intro guitar part. It's just so fun. And it's one of my first intros to Rush, believe it or not, because my older brother, who's right above me, he in age, not stature. Let's get that clear right now.
You stand alone with that one.
He was a huge Rush fan. And that was, I think one of the first Rush songs I remember hearing when I was younger. So Spirit of the Radio. And to this day, like I said, give me a guitar, I'll play it. I love it. Alex Lifeson, I know he gets actually a lot of love from guitarists and musicians because obviously I think Rush is a very geeky, very musician-y type band.
Yeah.
But I still don't think Alex Lifeson gets his due because Alex Lifeson, he has a particular chord, and Jimmy knows what I'm talking about. It's kind of a power chord with an added note. And everyone calls it the Alex Lifeson chord because that's a chord he uses quite often. He does in many of his songs. It's not a complicated chord. He plays the right stuff at all the right times. In some ways, his solos remind me of Andy Summers from the Police solos. Sometimes they're out there, and they don't really would think that's what you would play in that song, but it still fits perfectly.
Right.
But it's a little bit different to stand out, That's why Spirit of the Radio is my number 3 one. So
I love that song. I love that song mainly because that song is about a radio station that was really influential to me when I was in college and stuff. It's still in Toronto now. It's still active. 102.1.
107?
No, it was 102.1. It was called the Spirit of Radio, and it was called CFNY in the 90s. But they had a street level station. You could walk in, and their on-air personality was right there, and you could watch them interview people right there. You just walk in off the street and watch them. It was really cool.
Oh, very
cool. Really nice vibe. And they did when we were in college, and I would be driving back on Sunday nights. They would have this thing called the Ongoing History of New Music, and it was a documentary, half an hour, 30-minute documentary about alternative music or music in the 70s and the 80s and how it shaped the music of the day at the time and stuff. And it was really influential on my music choices at the time.
That's very cool.
Did you say Q107, Jimmy? Do you guys get that down there?
No, we may or may not be talking about Q107 in my pick.
Okay.
So Q107 and Edge and CFNY were owned by the same company, and one was modern rock and one was classic rock, and they were owned by the same corporation.
I'm assuming the Q107 was modern rock.
Mm-mm.
Really? All right.
Yeah,
well, that's going to make it more interesting with one of my picks.
I guess Jimmy isn't up on his Canadian history like he thinks he is.
Yeah.
No,
but
and both of those stations are still active today, by the way.
Awesome.
I listen to them both still. Yeah.
Do you listen to terrestrial radio?
What?
Do you listen to terrestrial radio?
Yeah, I do at times. Yeah.
I only do when my phone won't connect to my work truck.
I actually miss that about Ontario because
I went
the
back
radio here kind of sucks.
For years, we did satellite radio, and we just canceled it. And I've gone back to terrestrial radio because I was missing it.
I miss it big time. And my wife's gone to Katie's gone to back to satellite in her vehicle because the radio here in Manitoba is,
like
I said, questionable. And she
downtown
probably
Toronto,
misses Ontario stations too.
We get everything from fucking like Oshawa and Peterborough to Toronto to Buffalo here on terrestrial radio. So I just, between sports radio here in Buffalo and like the rock stations between Oshawa and Toronto, that's what I listen to now on the radio in the car.
I don't miss morning radio at all.
Yeah, in Minnesota here, we only have like one rock station, and they play stuff like, and granted, I like the band. In fact, they were on the NHL Stadium Series game tonight, 21 Pilots, but they're not rock. But they play bands like 21 Pilots and, stuff like that. It's like, okay.
Right.
And here's Metallica song you've heard a million times.
Right.
So, yeah, I haven't listened to terrestrial radio now for, it's awful.
I do listen to my playlist, my own playlist a lot in the car, but I do sometimes when I'm driving around listen to terrestrial radio.
The best $25 I spend a year is $25 for, they used to call iTunes Match. Now it's iCloud Match, but they literally, if you pay $25 a year, whatever iTunes does not, or Apple Music now doesn't have in their library, it automatically uploads to the cloud so you can listen to everything. So all my Prince bootlegs, my live stuff, my live extreme stuff.
Nice.
No, but so it's $25 a year, so it's great. So even when I don't listen to Apple Music, I'm still listening to my bootlegs or my live stuff that isn't available anywhere else.
Right. You're not gonna hear that shit on the radio.
This one might be picked one or two more times, but it's Rush, Tom Sawyer. I don't think you can go through 80's Rush or the Moving Pictures album without mentioning Tom Sawyer.
That was my introduction to Rush, Tom Sawyer. That was my first.
The average person who doesn't even know who Rush is knows this song.
Yeah.
For the longest time, it was played at sport events forever. It was played on every rock radio forever. Still is. It's when you think of
for Rush, me, it was Much Music. I saw the video on Much Music, and it's clips of Toronto and clips. And I'd been to Toronto a lot, so I'm like, I know that area, I know that spot. So it was really cool to me, and that's why it was a fucking memory. Yeah.
Right. I believe it. And that's one thing, they've been very generous. They've never forgotten where they're from. They still live there. I love it. They're very, very, very Canadian.
Well, you know what YYZ is, right?
Yes.
You know the song.
Yeah,
that's
amazing,
the airport code.
Yeah.
Airport code for Toronto, right? Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know.
Which for you Americans, what he's talking about is like a Canadian Morse code. Just filling in the blanks. Sorry.
We speak American. But yeah, Tom, you can't think of Rush without thinking of Tom Sawyer. It goes in hand. It's like saying you can't say Led Zeppelin without saying Stairway to Heaven or Prince and Purple Rain or the Eagles. And not to carry much further, but my number one song, don't kill me, is Rush, Limelight. It's nice. My favorite Rush song. Again, it's not a hard song, but I still love playing a song on guitar. It's just, it makes me happy when I listen to it. Same thing with Spirit of the Radio. It makes me happy when I listen to it. Geddy's vocals are great. Again, everyone, they're all consummate musicians, right? They're all the best of their instrument. They really are. They all of them are. And this song kind of highlights where Tom Sawyer kind of highlights, obviously, and Pure. This kind of highlights all three of them. It's my favorite Rush song, and there's no way that. Again, I went through, not to disregard Bryan Adams or a bunch of artists you guys might tell me that I don't know of. I probably should have, and once I hear them, I will research them and probably find something really good. But all the other Canadian bands, when I was going through the 80s, I'm like, there was a period, I loved Rush and I got sick of them. And then I started really loving it again because I was a musician, and Jimmy can test this. Every musician, especially if they're a bass player and drummer, fucking listen to Rush. And it's always Rush. It's like, okay, enough. I get it. Like another 10 episodes of this show, you'd be like, okay, I get it, Joe. You're a fucking Prince fan. Shut the fuck up.
Right.
But when I sat down, I couldn't leave those three Rush songs off. And then when I thought about the Corey Hart song, that was kind of the quintessential 80s song. And that passes borders, it's not Canadian song. It just really passes borders. Like, again, Tom Sawyer. Now, the other two songs may not be quite as popular to the average person from Rush, but when you think of Corey Hart, that song crosses borders. It's an 80s song. It's on every list, and so is Tom Sawyer. But Limelight's my favorite Rush song, so it had to be number one.
I think you summed up probably our entire country as far as Rush goes, with some people love Rush.
Oh, yeah.
Some people are like, all right, enough. We get it. Enough Rush.
Yeah. Oh, I burned out.
And they're not even playing all that much. Like,
no, but I burned out on them because I had dated a girl and her older brother was a bass player. So all he fucking talked about all the time was Rush, right? Like when I was in high school. So you're like, all right, like Joe said, I get it.
I get it. Right. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. If you know anyone that listens to them frequently, you're like, yeah, all right. That's good.
It's like Yes fans. Shut up about Yes, I get it. Okay, you love them.
We go on to something else.
That's very true.
Well, welcome back.
What do you got? You got Rush in your honorable mentions?
No, actually, my honorable mention is kind of a lame song. It's what we call a basic bitch, but it's Summer '69 by Bryan Adams.
Oh wow! Nice.
We kind of always joke, but not joke. That song kind of talks about one of my bands, and Timmy quit, which was my drummer, and Joey, which was me, got married. And then it's ever since my wife has pointed that out, it's kind of like, oh, every time I hear that song, I think of that band. And it's like, and it's a great song. Again, another great pop song. But and a personal thing, for whatever reason, when my wife brought that to my attention years ago when we were dating, and when that band broke up, she's like, oh, that's kind of funny. Timmy quit and Joey got married. And it's like, oh, yeah, well.
Joe, you should have said to your wife, you know what that song's really about.
Babe, I'll show you.
Well, she's gonna have to take part too. But shit.
Does she?
She's a tell. She got
I love you.
No, those are good choices, right? Like those are like. Yeah, those are all.
I was
right.
surprised by the Corey Hart. Pleasantly surprised by the Corey Hart. Actually,
yeah,
I was shocked.
Yeah. Well, see, I have a playlist like everyone else does, but it's my favorite '80s songs, and some of them are very, most of them, all of them are very popular. Every one of them are.
There's probably not that much Canadian on it, I would think.
No, I wouldn't think so. It's whatever was popular here, but I don't think there's probably those two songs. It's probably the only two songs from those two guys. But I don't even put Prince songs in there because my 80s Prince would just take up most of
it. Take it all over, right?
I'm that guy who was the Rush guy who I was sick of, right? But it's those two songs are in there, and those are my favorite songs from the 80s. They may have been at number 40, or they may have been number 1 or number 20. So it just was never based upon the rank in the chart. Is always like, those songs that still stay with me that I'm still not sick of. Like we were talking about a couple of shows ago, but it's weird how some songs you get sick of, some songs you get sick of and come back to, and some you never get sick of.
Yeah, I know, it is bizarre. Like,
yeah,
or songs you hate and then later in life love.
Was that
right?
Yeah,
how about that?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I fall into that category a lot.
Right.
Oh yeah,
that song, and now I'm all into it. Right. Like,
yeah, and I listen to 80s pop all the time. I think they're probably the most inventive. I mean, because you have now we would call everything, like you have Depeche Mode, you have, Peter Gabriel, you have Prince, you have Police, The Sting, so many different bands of the day that were sounded so different, but they're all the same genre, right? And now we've kind of, at the risk of sounding old, kind of funneled everything down where everything starts sounding the same because everything is written to be a hit, which fine, that's great. That's not my thing. There's some songs that are brand new that I still like, or current songs from the last couple of years I like. But the 80s were so exciting because there's so much diversity and sounds in totally. Just music alone.
Totally. And there's so much 80s, like to piggyback off what Jimmy said, not so much hated back then, but wasn't a huge fan of, that I love now.
Yeah, sure.
That would make a list now that if I had made a tape back in the day, they would have never been on it, right? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I think I was more tunneled, like, and I like this pop and this metal and everything else.
I was more like I'd be into this genre for a while, and then I would get out of that genre and go to this genre for a while, and then you know what I mean? Like I get
and now I'll mix it all together, make a giant playlist of all that stuff, right?
Yeah. I start to try to make one list a certain genre, and I start fucking.
It never works.
So awry from that, like quick.
Yeah. No, I couldn't do that either.
Yeah, so that's
right, who's up next?
Presidente is next.
No. Pale President.
Pale President.
All right.
I'm American. I only speak one language.
Well, so do I. I had to Google Translate that. As disappointed as my French teacher sister will be, I don't speak French. Or write it, or what is that? There's a stand-up comedian that does a thing. Is I speak Ontario high school French, which is like you only had to take it in grade 9, and then after that you didn't have to take it again. Je suis tué. That's it.
I am. You are. He is. She is.
Yeah, that's it. I can't think of. That's it. Oh mon Dieu. Anyways, so my number 4 is a band that I actually stood in line, or not in line. There's only 3 of us. Stood for like 6 hours outside the Bracebridge Arena when I was in public school with 3 friends to wait so we could be the first 3 people to go in general admission to see Honeymoon Suite and hear them sing "Burning in Love" was the song that I picked for that I remember the most. I think.
Nice.
But they played in Bracebridge one year, and I remember. I think it was the summer of grade 7 going into grade 8. And I rode by the arena because I knew they were going to be there sound checking. And 2 friends of mine from school, I'm ashamed I can't remember their names. We're standing there. I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, we're waiting. We're going to be the first fucking ones. We don't care. And it was like, I don't know, 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'm like, all right. So I rode my bike home. I told my parents, I'm going to go wait in line. I went and fucking stood with them, and we stood all day. The band came out and talked to us at one point, and fucking were cool.
That is cool.
And then we went in and saw the opener, who was Brighton Rock. Thank you if you remember them. Who I really like them too. But yeah, I really loved the band after that. They were a big part of growing up. Me listening, falling asleep to their music, waking up to their music. And on a topic we were talking about earlier, they were an independent, won a contest on Q107 in Toronto that actually got them signed originally. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. I found that out when I was doing the research.
My notes are done.
Sorry, man. I think you cooked me once before, though, so you know, touche. Yeah. I don't have a lot more to say. They were really popular for a while. I know they had a song called Lethal Weapon that was played on the Lethal Weapon movie during the end credits, but it never really got credited in the movie. But yeah. And one of my influential bands growing up.
Totally. I've seen them a couple times in concert. I will piggyback a little bit just to ask these guys, and if Jimmy, if it's in your notes, probably, but you guys know why they're called Honeymoon Suite? Not Chris, but you too.
Yeah, I do. You want to steal the rest of my notes?
I will let you say it.
No,
when it's your
tell
turn.
Tell it. It's a good story. Go ahead, tell it.
Yeah, no, they're just named Honeymoon Suite because they're from Niagara Falls, right? And Niagara Falls was a hot spot for people to take their honeymoons. I don't know if it still is. Maybe
the honeymoon capital of the world.
The honeymoon capital of the world. I know it was in the 60s, 70s, 50s.
Like Marilyn Monroe did a movie about it there.
Right. It was the place to be, right? And in fact, sorry to steal this from your notes, because they didn't crack my list. They are on the cusp. They're in the large honorable mentions. Their new album, they have a new album last year. It's fucking dynamite. for you listeners, Jimmy is ripping up his notes. Their new album, Alive, is wicked, and the title track, they filmed a video at Niagara Falls to try to pay homage to where they're from, to go back to their roots. They weren't sure what to do for the video. Hey, let's just get a camera and go down there. And they walked around, and Johnny D, the singer, they just filmed him singing the tracks by the falls and stuff. And I'm sure everybody was like, is that fucking Honeymoon Suite?
That's funny, because I was going to say, I saw that they released an album, but I haven't listened to it. I have no idea what it's like.
Really, really good. Like, and we may have stated this on other shows. I'm not a full listener album guy anymore because I don't collect vinyl. So I have to force myself to, because I'm a single track or my own playlist guy on streamers. Yeah. Unlike when we were kids, when you played it to death, right? The full album, but it's really good front to back. I made a point of listening to. I'm like, oh, Honeymoon Suite has a new album. This was earlier last year.
What's the name of that album?
Alive.
Okay. Alive.
And the title track is Alive. Obviously, that's the one I was talking about. Yeah, it's good. And they hadn't had an album in like 12 years, maybe, or don't quote me on that. Like, it'd been a while anyway.
It'd been a while.
Yeah. I don't know. I lost track. I apologize.
Yeah, no, because they're early stuff. Those first three albums are dynamite. That one you held up is the second one, right? Like, in the one the song Chris talking about on the debut album, and the third one, Racing After Midnight, whatever. Those three albums are really, really good. And then
Racing After Midnight was good. And actually, there's a Van Halen connection with Racing After Midnight. I don't know if that was.
Is there?
Ted, I can't remember the guy's last name, produced it, but he also produced Van Halen album, one of them.
Oh, Ted Templeman, yeah.
Yeah, he produced that Racing After Midnight, which at that time was their last album.
Oh, Ted, yeah, we talked about Ted in the first episode. Yeah, go back and watch it. Yeah. More notes.
Well, folks, we're going to have a three-man show tonight. Jimmy's no longer needed.
No time. The Canadians stole something from the Americans.
It's one song. Come on. It's one song.
No, I'm having fun with it.
Let's get away from Honeymoon Suite and steal his
I'm actually learning some stuff.
That's great. Anyways, I love that band, and I see a trend in my list. I keep saying it over and over again. Once I saw them live, they blew me away, and I like them so much more.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? When a band is so good live, and they're really good live.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Or they were. I'm guessing the still. Anyways,
and a lot of times, sometimes the live version's better than the studio version. You know?
Yeah, sometimes
I find a lot of the times the live version. The live versions are a little bit more harder or edgier.
Yeah, raw.
Yeah,
a little rockier.
Yeah.
So, having said that, my number 3 is "Round and Round" by Frozen Ghost.
I knew you were gonna have this. I don't know why.
Because I fucking love Frozen Ghost.
And I think we talked about it in one of our trivia nights that you'd realize how much you love this song. Like,
again, they came to my high school and played live at my high school for the final dance of the year before, like, I think I was grade 10. And again, blew me away live. What's that?
So they were a big band.
They were fairly big band.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say huge. Like, they probably didn't break in your country.
Never heard of them. But I'm going to check them out, though.
Have you ever heard of Sheriff?
I wrote it down.
Yeah.
They came. So originally, the lead singer and keyboardist was from a band called Sheriff.
Yeah. Okay.
And then went on to do Frozen Ghost. Really, that album went triple platinum in Canada. Or sorry, I think it went 6 times platinum in Canada. Yeah.
Dang.
But they came and played at my school. They had 2 or 3, I think, pretty big albums in Canada. But he went on to be a producer and produced Our Lady Peace, Finger 11, and 1,000-Foot Crutch, the lead singer from Frozen Ghost. But I really like his voice. I like the keyboards. I like the drums. I like his lyrics. I had that I distinctly remember getting that album, which I'm gapping on the name right now. On one of those.
Nice Place to Visit. Is that right? No.
I think that's what it was. I think that's what. Anyways, it was one of the Columbia House tapes that I got.
All right.
One of those packages that we talked about before.
It
I
always
distinctly
comes
remember
back
being,
to
oh, right,
Columbia House.
fucking Frozen Ghost. All right.
All right. Put on some Frozen Ghost, some FG.
Yeah. And then when they played my school, I went and saw them, and they, again, like I said, they blew me away.
Yeah, good pick. Yeah.
Have to check them out.
Number 2 is Diamond Mine by Blue Rodeo.
Wow.
Which is going to be borderline country, I suppose, if you really want to think. What's that? Sorry?
You guys mentioned this band quite a bit, and I had never heard of them.
Yeah, neither have I.
So
he's right. They are borderline country. They're even classified as country rock or rock country.
Rock country. They but that Diamond Mine, there's the drums and the keyboard and the guitar, and Greg Keeler's voice. So there's basically 2 lead singers. They take turns on songs sometimes. Jim Cuddy and Keeler. And Jim Cuddy has a beautiful voice. But I got to tell you, there's something about Greg Keeler's voice.
I'm with you.
Oh my, he's different. It's very distinctive. It's very good. It gives me goosebumps, this song, when I hear him sing the drums, the guitar. It just, and when they harmonize together, him and Jim Cuddy, because Jim Cuddy's gone on to have, I've seen Jim Cuddy live solo. I've seen them together as Blue Rodeo. They're both really, really good. I haven't seen Keeler solo, but so Jimmy, if you want to know about them, the CBC just had a documentary. Dink, have you seen the documentary?
I don't think so.
So CBC just released a documentary. It's on YouTube for free, man. I watched it last night. I literally watched it last night. It's 9 days ago it was posted.
Oh shit. No, I
Tegan and Sarah make appearances in it. Sarah McLachlan makes appearances in it. Tegan and Sarah talk about how their parents would listen to it, and that's how it influenced them, which was really cool to hear.
That's cool.
Yeah. And like one of them was talking, I can't remember which one it was. She's like, her first dance was to 5 Days in May, which is my favorite. 5 Days in May is my favorite Blue Rodeo song.
Right. Not on today's list because
her first dance with a boy was to that, and she's like, and then every time he would see her afterwards, and he would bring up to how that was their song, and she was like, it would bug me because I'm like so gay, and like this guy would remember I'd have to dance with him again whenever the song would come on. It was hilarious. Anyways, Erica M makes an appearance in there from Much Music, but so in the documentary you find out that they couldn't get radio play. They had a song called Try on their original album that was really good. They couldn't get radio play, and how they got actually discovered was on Much Music. They were one of the first bands they got more video play on Much Music for Try than they got radio play, and that's where they hit, was from videos on Much Music. And that's kind of in the documentary.
And without knowing, probably because I'm guessing here, they couldn't be, people couldn't figure out what they were. If they were country or they were rock or they were folk or they were like, what are you?
And they talk about how the thing at the time was the hair bands. They talk about how Van Halen was big, like Rat was big. Those bands were getting signed, and they weren't getting signed.
And the Canadians, we had Kick-Axe and Helix, and
Anvil,
Killer Dwarfs and Anvil, right? Like,
then so they had somebody who was a fan at Much Music, and they pushed it. And then I can't remember that, was it Denise something? She was a program director at Much Music. She's big. Denise. She's hugely influential in yours and my music taste for sure, because she was the program director at Much Music all those years and got these bands on the air and got them airplay, or else they probably wouldn't. And so they're just one of those bands that like I absolutely love, and they're a touch country in some songs, but they're undeniable how they're kind of like, it's Tragically Hip for me, and then Blue Rodeo.
Yeah, they have a massive following here, and they tour a lot. Like, I've seen them 5 times. I've never seen either one, like you said, solo. I've seen Blue Rodeo 5 times because it's the show. your wife will go to. It's a show anyone will go to here because their songs are familiar. They're just beloved.
Oh, yeah. And they go generations too. Like in the documentary, Erica M, who was a VJ on Much Music here in Canada, said she was talking to her daughter on the phone and she could hear Blue Rodeo playing in the background. And she's like, "What are you listening to?" She's like, "Blue Rodeo. I love them." And she's like, "That's my band." She's like, "Well, they're our band now because I love them too." Like her daughter, who's in university, is like listening to Blue Rodeo.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, really she's cool. Our downtown Julie Brown or whatever. Like,
yeah.
Oh, very cool.
Huge crush on her in the fucking 80s.
Oh yeah, she's on the to-do list.
Imagine have that kind of sway though, that whatever your musical interests are, you just throw on your program, and then, I mean, that's a risk too, because it turned out you're playing a bunch of people that no one else likes, but obviously she has great taste because she's putting a bunch of bands on there that aren't getting their radio play at all, and then all of a sudden they start taking off. That's amazing.
Right.
She's got a great reputation here, and she, for like our generation, she formed a lot of our music taste because she's the one that had and she pushed a lot of really good music like that other places or other people might not have done.
That's awesome.
So that was my number 2, and my number 1 is Blow It High Dough, Tragically Hip.
And I have a hip song.
Like,
well, I guess
I was going to do notes, and I have a feeling that like 90% of the Canadians would agree with me when I say I don't really have to say anything else. It's the Tragically Hip. You know what I mean? It's just for us, it's just ingrained in like it's part of like, I don't know. It's not even from my favorite album, to tell you the truth. My favorite album is Fully Completely.
Mine is the one is up to here, the one that Blow It High Dough is on, but Fully Completely is number 2.
So Blow It High Dough, it actually started making me question my opening tracks list. Because
I thought you were going somewhere else with that.
Because it's the opening track on the album, right?
Yeah, and I mentioned it in my honorable mentions on opening track. I couldn't not, right?
And I hadn't listened to it in a while, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Anyways, but that album, that band, sitting around the campfire, how many times did we sing the song? How many times have I seen them in concert singing this with like people I know, people I don't know? You know, like, I know, Joe, you said you tried to get into Tragically Hip earlier when you were listening to them. And
I mean, I tried them. I mean,
I know. I get it.
I have other friends who are not only from Canada, but just from like North Dakota, those areas, and they love Tragically Hip too. I've tried. I'm like, I don't know what it is.
And it's like, I get that for sure, because it's not for everybody. And I went through a period where I was like, because I got into like, all their music sounds the same, but then you realize that like it's not. They're lyrically all distinctive and independent, and a lot of them are historical, and a lot of it is too, because like Dink and I grew up having friends that could play the guitar, and we would sit around the fire and sing their music. It's that type of music, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same as Blue Rodeo or Our Lady Peace,
very same,
or any of those other ones, right? Junk House, that was another one that was.
Wow. There's
anyways.
Very cool. Nice list, man. What's your honorable mention?
I have so many honorable mentions. But Corey Hart was going to be one of my honorable mentions. I'm a big Corey Hart fan, especially when he did acoustic stuff. But I'm going to say this list is, like we've all said over and over again, my personal list and what I liked. But if I went like most influential Canadian band from the 80s, I might go Rough Trade or Trooper or something like that. If people know those bands at all, they were more like, what's the word?
I know Trooper. They had that one really big song here.
Right.
Trooper has Raise a Little Hell, Boys in the Bright White Sports Car.
Raise a Little Hell.
We're here for a good time.
Right.
General Hand Grenade,
Yep. Or Prism or Chilliwack or fucking Grapes of Wrath. Even I was a big fan of Grapes of Wrath. So I'm just trying to get as many Canadian bands names out there as I can.
Yeah, good slide.
Right. 5440 is another big band for me too. They were on the short list and almost, I don't know if you know any of their stuff. They have a really good live album. I would check out 5440. They're along the lines of I would say kind of in between Tragically Hip and Big Wreck, maybe. I don't know. That's a good analogy, Dink. What do you think?
Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah.
But like Topper Canyon,
still playing, still touring. My sister just saw him in the last few months. So
I've seen, and that's again going with my theme of bands I've seen live that are so good live that I love. 5440, I saw at the Key to Bala, I don't know how many times, which is a small venue in the middle of nowhere in cottage country where I grew up. And Dink's wife, her family had a cottage up there. I did security for their concerts a couple of times, like where I'd stand right in front of the band, and all I basically did was turn around and look at the band the whole time because they were blowing me away.
Well, am I supposed to be working?
Right? I'm basically supposed to be breaking up fights and fucking watching for security risks, and I'm like fucking singing the songs and
best in the house.
That's like the ushers at hockey games, right? I'm like, yeah, never mind where my seats are. Watch the game, like,
yeah. So I can't. There's so many honorable mentions. I could stop. Loverboy, and there's another one that could have been fucking brought
there's
up.
So many, right? Yeah, for us, we're just bombarded, right? Like,
yeah. Get Lucky was a big album for me. I still remember buying it on vinyl and taking it home. And
so good,
right?
So good.
Anyways, I could go on all night about Canadian music. I have so many lists of Canadian music.
That was a good list, though.
Yeah, some more bands I got to listen to. So thank you for that.
I'm gonna pass it off to I'm getting on it.
I'm getting it.
Sorry, I'm getting it.
Are you getting it?
Americans? That's French for Jimmy.
It's French for Jimmy.
That's
Drunkenese for Jimmy.
Well, Chris, thanks for the handoff. I'm loving every minute of it. So
nice.
So keeping it going.
I'll be here all day.
All
right, so my favorite best top 3 plus an honorable mention. So I'm going to start with number 4. We have you can't speak Canadian music as an American without mentioning Bryan Adams. Huge part of my childhood, our American childhood, I would imagine your childhood as well, is Bryan Adams. I mean, from was it like 81 to 87? It was Bryan Adams all of the time. My favorite song comes from Reckless, 1984, and it's Run to You.
Nice.
Oh, nice. We actually play a lot of Bryan Adams in the house. We have the first, I think, 5 albums, and that's kind of where we stopped our Bryan Adams love. But I really enjoy this whole album, but Run to You is that standout song. It was kind of cool. It debuted at I think it was 69, but ended up number 1 on the US Billboard charts, number 1 in the Canadian I believe it was called Hot List. Your Billboard charts are kind of have different names, so I'm still trying to learn that. And I believe yours was number 1 on the number 1 on the Hot List. Kind of cool about this album on the Billboard all-time charts, and that goes from 1958 to 2018. It stands at 169 for the all-time records. So that's pretty big accomplishment in my mind. Mutt Lange is involved with this album, as he was with a large majority of the 80s. The song, it's really kind of funny because the whole song's about infidelity. He's with someone, he's hanging out with another, and in the video, the other is his guitar. So I thought that was kind of cool. So if you watch that video again, you'll see that he's in love with his guitar, but he still has a love interest outside of his guitar. So I mean, it's pretty straightforward. That's my number 4.
Nice.
You guys have a good solid pull. You're right. Reckless was massive here. And the fact that it's 169 is pretty impressive. And I have in the other room, I have on the coffee table, these little coffee table books that are 70s, 80s, and 90s, and its top albums sold the top 100 from those years. And I'm sure if I flip through the 80s, Reckless is in the top 10 or near the front, right? Of course, Thriller and The Wall and Back in Black are all right at the beginning. But you got to think is great. And I'm with you. I love Run to You. I love that whole album. I love Heaven. 69 for me is in the sorry, Joe, is in the overkill for me. Sure. Just because we've heard it so many fucking times. It's still good. I prefer it in concert.
I've gone back to liking it again. It's one of those ones that I've gone back.
It got killed for you and you went back? Yeah.
It got killed. It got to the point where I would turn the radio if it came on. I don't do that.
Right, because of overkill, right? And I liked it a lot when I was a kid, and then the same thing, stopped liking it. And then I've seen him in concert a couple times. He does it really well in concert. But he does Run to You really well in concert.
Live again.
Really good live. My point was going to be about that album. The fact that it broke so well down there is really
so huge.
On the strength of like summer 69. And I guess if Run to You went number one on the strength of that, on the strength of having Tina Turner help with a song on the album doesn't hurt, right? Like,
no. Only Love.
Yeah. And then a ballad that was in a movie that nobody's seen, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, okay, when I said number one, I meant the Reckless album. The song went to number 6 on the Billboard Top Rock. But
down there, that's pretty good though still, right?
That's really high.
Yeah.
So
still, it's really high. It's a great album, and a lot of people, I would say nobody ever talks about Bryan Adams' guitar tone. He's got this really pure, clean, almost zero distortion. I think there's a couple songs he's got a little gain in there to give it distortion. I don't believe he's using stomp boxes or anything. I think it's all
it's definitely coming from the
and he has this really, really beautiful, clean guitar sound, and it really highlights in Run to You and that breakdown, that dring, 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 and then that's a really, really beautiful clean guitar sound, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. I don't know if that's him or if that was Mutt Lange, but it's a great guitar tone. And
great pull,
that's it for me.
He's one of those artists that I don't think I ever purchased one of his albums, but I always liked so many of his songs individually that I would listen to. And also, I got a little bit of a personal note with him. He does art now, and he had an art exhibit a couple of years ago at the museum that I work at. And my wife got to talk to him. Christy got to talk to him.
Oh, wow.
And he was really, really down to earth. She didn't even know who he was at first when she started talking to him. No. He was really down to earth. He was really nice. He was really, because I've heard stories about him being really arrogant and cocky and stuff, but the interactions that people I know that met him, he was really nice, down to earth. Really was a nice guy.
Shows how maybe one bad interview or one bad interaction spreads.
When he had that success, he was so much so much younger too. I was such a cocky asshole when I was 20.
Right.
25.
I wasn't
29. Right.
I've been the same all the way through.
Oh yeah, you never broke your hand on anybody's head ever. Ever.
No one would have saw me if I became famous. I would have been insufferable.
And also, the song "Heaven" was really big at my grade 8 graduation. That was the slow dance.
It was an ass grabber for sure.
Yeah, that was a huge song here too.
Yeah. So, real dumb question: how big was he in Canada? Was he just absolutely
massive? Absolutely
massive. Yeah. Have you ever
were they contemplating putting him on the Canadian flag?
No,
you couldn't turn much music on without seeing one of his videos. You couldn't turn on the radio without hearing one of his songs. My parents knew who he was.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, it's the same here, because when he was huge, he was fucking huge.
For that time frame in the 80s, if you ever question who, and it's not totally accurate, but who was substantial, we also had a collaboration like Hearing Aid, like Band-Aid, and like We Are the World.
Right, I've seen it.
And so it's Bryan Adams, Corey Hart, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Burton Cummings, Gordon Lightfoot. It's all the Anne Murray, all the big names, right? And then a few filters of like, who the hell is that person?
It's called Northern Lights. Northern Lights.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Cheesy, one of those songs for.
All of them were fucking cheesy. The only one that was really good was the UK one because it was the original one.
Yeah, or the metal one was good. I liked
that. Stars.
That's your opinion.
Have you ever seen the Norwegian Stars?
Absolutely not. I have not. Absolutely not.
There's a Norwegian one. They were helping famine.
Yeah. If you get a chance, you write this down and look it up because they are all just in a daze and they're confused to where they are. They're staring around, looking around. Oh, it's fucking hilarious.
This is fucking real?
It is real.
What do they feeding the homeless in Sweden or what?
No, I think it was all going to Africa. But it's fucking yeah. And all of their names are Fjord Bjorgensen, and you just go through and it's fucking hilarious.
Consonants in their fucking name.
Yeah. They share one name.
Fucking name. That's a fucking sound of shit falling down the stairs.
Fjord Bjorgensen. Oh, Jesus.
And I'm not kidding. You watch it. They're all looking around. And then there's that one really, really intense guy just going, yeah, the love song. It's fucking hilarious.
He's the leader, right?
When we can recording, this is the first fucking thing I'm gonna do, man.
Holy shit.
Wait,
wow.
All right, well, I have to move on. I got to preserve some time here.
Yes.
Number 3 is previously mentioned. It's Honeymoon Suite. I really feel it again. This is Joe will understand this. This is a KQRS song.
Oh yeah.
My wife and I always talk about music, and they're like, "Oh, that's a KQ song." KQRS, KQ92 is a radio station in Minneapolis. And there was a time when KQ's antenna accessibility was greater than every other radio station. So you turn on the radio, that's all you could get was KQRS or KDWB, if you remember KDWB.
Oh, yeah.
So even we were in that small kind of farm townish, north of the cities there.
We've already about the cattle and the women.
Yeah, the cattle, yes.
Right. Where all of our concerts are in a metal barn.
Fucking loud, dude.
Start talking about the cows.
Fucking loud.
Right? No.
The women.
Nope, I'm not going there. So, but yeah, it's a big KQ song. I really, the first time I heard it, and I was just like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like this. And I did run out and actually buy the album. I didn't steal it from Columbia House or BMG. And I own a couple of their albums. I still listen to them on occasion. The first 2 albums, Honeymoon Suite, the self-titled album, and The Big Prize, the one here. The one note that didn't get stolen from me is this picture was taken at Niagara Falls on the Canadian side.
Yes.
So that's pretty much it.
Man.
They're
really bad about that.
No, don't be. I've stepped on so many toes in this podcast. One note is,
you heard all this already? I'm just kidding.
Right. They did win a Juno Award, which is the Canadian version of our Grammys. Yeah. For Group of the Year and Album of the Year on that particular album.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, so that's my number 3. So I still had a little bit of notes. I'm
glad you mentioned the Junos because I'm going to bring them up in mine, and I don't want to be the only one bringing up the Junos. Those count, as Deadpool said. Those count.
Good movie.
As it happens, I forgot to bring that up. It is in my notes.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I love that band.
Doing the research on this is kind of fun because there's kind of a lot of uncharted territory for me. I mean, obviously, I did know Bryan Adams and I did know Honeymoon Suite. Their other 2 bands, I'm probably the big American on, but it was really cool. I'm learning about your music society there. The music, what is it? The Canadian Academy of Recording Artists and Sciences. That's what the Juno Award is. I'm learning about how your albums chart there. I'm learning how they get certified, which is gold, platinum, diamond, all that stuff, and the differences. So I'm actually learning a lot from this, and it's kind of cool. And so we get to really spotlight your country today, which is also pretty cool. It's pretty fun. So I'm going to move on to my number 2. This band has the biggest place in my heart in 80s metal, 80s hair band, 80s hard rock. It's the Killer Dwarfs.
Nice.
I fucking love this band. I've always loved them. One of my schoolmates introduced them to me. He's like, "Hey, I see that you like metal. Check this band out." And he handed me Stand Tall. It was the CD, or it was the tape. It was the tape at that time. Unfortunately, Mark has passed away. Rest in peace, Mark. But yeah, it's the Killer Dwarfs. They have this level of comedy. They don't take themselves serious. Lots of jokey, pranky kind of things. All the members of the band take on the last name Dwarf. So the singer Russ Dwarf. That was also pushed on them by their label. They did not want to be called the Killer Dwarfs or take on the last names, and they ended up embracing it.
That's so weird. Like, who at the label goes, "This is the best name ever. You're going to be called the Killer Dwarfs."
Right. Well, this song "Stand Tall" is about the record industry, and it's just having to stick it through it, and keep going and do what they say. And they really, the video is fucking awesome. It's hilarious. It is
that's how I found them, with the video. Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of their heavier songs. They do have a quite a nice light side to them too. Their drummer, I believe his name is Dwayne Miller, something Miller. Really good. Really accessible, doesn't do anything mind-blowing, but plays to the song and has some really unique chops. So I did enjoy him. But the prize of this band is Russ Dwarf. Completely a Rush fan. You can tell by how his phrasing and how he sings. He does have that Geddy style vibrato in his voice, and that tone, that Geddy tone. Which is also what brought me into liking them, because I'm one of the, of this show, probably the foremost Rush fan. But yeah, Killer Dwarfs, Stand Tall, fucking amazing. I love them so much. And they're from, I didn't know how to pronounce it. You said it earlier, Chris. It's Oshawa, Ontario.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out exactly how to pronounce it, but you said it. So thank you for that little slide in there.
The dirty schwa.
We call it the dirty schwa here. It's got a bad reputation.
Okay.
It's where General Motors is based out of. So it's a blue collar town. It's the car industry, automotive factory workers.
Oh, those kind of people.
It's just
I don't say anything. I got a lot of friends there.
Yeah, no, I got a lot of friends from there too. I had an ex-girlfriend that went to college there. I can't say much.
I almost started choking.
Yeah. They're hardworking people, but there are a lot of rough people there. Yes. They get by.
Now I gotta ask about the video. Not to put you on the spot. Is the video, because I get their videos were cool. They get them mixed up. Is that the video where they make the record in the microwave?
Yes.
Does that keep?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, they make the goo and they take a plunger and they stick it on a press.
Yeah.
And they take rubber cement on a piece of paper and slap it on there off-centered, and they hang it on
you'd see it on the. You'd see that here on Much Music on the Power Hour.
Yeah, they put it on a clothesline.
That's how I found about the Killer Dwarfs. We talked about Much Music so much tonight, and that's again.
I couldn't remember if it was that one or Keep the Spirit Alive or Heavy Metal Breakdown. One of them, he's in a crate too, in the back of a truck. I think that might be Heavy Metal Breakdown.
That's off a Big Deal. Yeah. Yeah. And what's really, really funny about this is they're doing all this in like an 8x8 living room, really small living room. And then there's a little jam session, and they're all like playing in this little teeny little box of a room. Yeah. But if you like 80s hair metal and you like a little comedy, definitely, please go check out Killer Dwarfs because they got some really cool shit. Their best album, hands down, is Dirty Weapons. It's the greatest thing that they put out. They took it more serious. They had money behind it. That was from 1990. Otherwise, I would have had something on this from that.
Right.
The album after that, Method to the Madness, is fucking great. They had a new guitar player, just a shredder. Yeah. So yeah, I guess with that, I'm going to move on to number 1. I, like Joe, could have easily done all Rush because I love Rush. I challenged myself on this one to kind of, break away from that for myself.
So I was a cop out. I see how it is.
No, not going there. I'm just saying for me because
Joe under the bus. All right, here we go.
No. It was for me. Otherwise, I mean, I could list off top 900 Rush songs and been happy with it. But I wanted to push myself because there is some Canadian music out there. I mean, obviously, I love the Killer Dwarfs. I'm just a huge fan.
Obviously, yeah.
When you were building up to the Killer Dwarfs, I was like, this band was like, okay, here's his first Rush song.
That's what I thought. Here comes Rush, right?
Killer Dwarfs, like what?
Yeah, it threw me too. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
By design. So number 1 is Rush. I adore Rush. I love Rush. There are exactly. I'm a big fan. I could go on for hours about Rush, and I won't. But
I won't. I refuse to.
No, we're running long. We got another character here to give some picks.
Yeah, you left me with about 6 minutes.
Buck and a half. Buck and a half.
Right. My favorite Rush song of all time is one of their slower droning songs. It's called Losing It. It's off of Signals. It's about a person with skills losing their abilities, degrading, falling away from being the top of the heap, now realizing, oh, I'm losing it. There's a ballerina story. There's a musician story. There's a mechanic story. It's a fantastic song. And every time I hear it, it gives me goosebumps. And it makes me think about, fuck, am I losing some capacities of things and those kind of things. So
I was going to say, not to steal from your notes from here, but actually I tell you guys, I know the origins of the song. The song is about me.
So yeah, Losing It. It's a keyboard heavy song. Neil Peart doesn't go fucking crazy on it. It's very Geddy Lee oriented in keyboards. Alex, there's a really cool breakdown in there where Alex has and I believe it's Leifson, right? Not Leifson.
Technically, it's supposed to be Leifson, yeah.
Okay.
It's one of those. Everybody says Leifson, right?
Yeah, it's Neil Peart, but it's Peart.
Yeah, everybody says Peart, right? Yeah, but you see people after he died starting to pronounce it a little more correctly, but it was always Neil Peart and Alex.
It's like Geddy Lee. It's actually Geddy Lee.
Yeah, it's Geddy Lee. Right. It's Celine Dion.
Celine Dion.
Right. I was going to do an all Celine Dion list as a joke, but
then you're like, shit, all the songs came out like early 90s.
Oh, I could have found a way around it. So, all right. So my honorable mention. This is a dink rule, because 2 of the 4 are from Canada. They are listed as a Canadian British band.
Wow.
I've seen them 3 times. One of my biggest idols, Bonham.
No, wait. This is like fucking Brett Hall. Brett Hall's not fucking American. He's fucking born in Canada. That Bonham, no.
What about Skid Row? Like, it's only Sebastian that's Canadian. All the rest of those guys are, as he's wearing a Hull jersey.
Oh my god!
There's the that's how all right there.
Wait, that's our.
I told you I had a Canadian surprise for my shirt.
That is our first flat out dispute. No, we're not going to accept.
The last time somebody told me about Canadian surprise, they got on their knees.
Well,
250%
where I was going with this is someone died. So, okay. I'm gonna keep going. Fuck it. I'm gonna protest. So anyway, Daniel McMasters from Ontario. He died from a strep infection.
That's how he died?
Brad, you were just sitting here howling when you're talking about the guy dying.
I know.
That's really how he
I gave
died?
you the heads up.
Oh,
So,
fuck
okay.
you. Oh, jeez.
Oh shit.
The bass he had to walk away.
Joe laughed. He's disputing as well. Oh,
He needs a power cord. He needs a power cord.
Oh God.
Fuck.
How am I gonna follow this?
All right. So
yeah, shit. That sucked.
The other guy from Canada is John Smithson, and I believe it's Barrie, British Columbia, that he's from.
Sure.
That sounds remote, but yes.
And Disregard for Timekeeping, Wait for You is the song. Jason Bonham is the drummer, a son of John Bonham, and one of my biggest idols. So I snuck one in there. Fuck it.
Yeah, no, that's cool. If you're gonna,
We have no rule. You're good.
Yeah, it's a guideline.
Despite what Joe thinks, you're good.
Despite when we go look later, and we all go, yeah, I don't know about that one. Joe was right.
50% of my pick was Canadian.
That's awesome. I love Bonham. Again, another Columbia House purchase for me.
All right.
And I've seen him live, Jason Bonham, like 5 times. Adore Jason Bonham. He just got fucked by Sammy Hagar.
Amazing.
Dink, can I just say one thing before you do your list?
Sure.
I said that program director for Much Music was Delise Dobbin. It's Delise Donlin. I want to make sure I get her name right because she was awesome. Delise
Donlin?
Oh, now I know who you're talking about.
Donlon. Hey, shut up, 2 cents.
Hey, shut up, Bonnie. She's actually Canadian.
Turns out she's from Maine.
Yeah, she's from Maine.
No matter where she was from, she was at the program director at Much Music when we were growing up.
She was good with Canadian music, but she was...
Hey, I'm going to do an early go fuck yourself. So.
Well, Jimmy wants to give Joe one, too. Go fuck yourself, man.
Sorry, Dake. Sorry.
All right.
No, that's cool.
I'm going to hand it off to Dink.
All right, so it's me. All right, so I will close the show. I will try to be quick. I will just say really quickly for the listeners, we had a little bit of confusion going into this because we picked this a while ago and then sat on it. And then when it was time that it was approaching, we all had different things. Some of us were doing songs. Some of us were doing artists. Some of us were doing albums. It was going to be a Canadian free. Some of us were just concentrating on Bonham. It was going to be a Canadian free-for-all. So thankfully we got the songs because it did change my list. So I will start with number 4, and it is "Don't It Make You Feel" from the Headpins.
Wow. The Headpins, okay.
Or Headpins. It's not the Headpins, but you can't help but say the Headpins in a sentence. If you guys aren't familiar with that band, I have probably sent you a couple of Canadian lists in our time we've known each other. And you probably haven't even looked at them, but that song's been on every one of them. This is a classic rocker. Headpins are a spin-off from Chilliwack. They were a side project for Brian Too Loud McLeod and Ab Bryant. And Brian Too Loud, I love. Awesome guitarist. Sadly, no longer with us. Died in 92. Collapsed on stage in 90. Had brain cancer. And, so that was shitty. But the vocals for me, I love Darby Mills, female vocalist. Like I said, it's a rockin' song. Her vocals are so good on a lot of the tracks, but particularly 2 or 3 of them that are really, really good. They opened. They had a bit of a following here, but they opened in the States for Whitesnake and Aerosmith and Kiss. So they're definitely on that Eddie Money, ZZ Top. In fact, and I found this out in my research, I did not know this. They were part of the ZZ Top's Afterburner tour. That was the album after Eliminator, right? The one with Stages and Sleeping Bag and Rough Boy. that wasn't in my notes. I spit those songs out of the break.
Look at that, ladies and gentlemen.
But anyway, they were getting too much attention as the opener, and ZZ Top didn't like it. So they told them not, because they did an encore. So they told them to scrap the encore, which openers rarely do.
They don't do encores. You don't do an encore.
Right. So they told him to scrap it, and Brian Too Loud wouldn't, because he knew they were getting the crowd riled up, and then they were cut from the tours. So yeah, so that's it. That's kind of my thing. Like Brian Too Loud was in, like I said, was in Chilliwack. He did 4 albums with Chilliwack, and then and if you guys don't know Chilliwack, that's definitely a band I would recommend you check out. Chilliwack is a place in BC, right? So they're named after where they're from.
Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
And it's like gone, she's been gone so long, she's been gone so long. Like that's one of their songs. Like they've got a bunch of stuff in the 70s too, right? Like she talks crazy talk. A bunch of good stuff. But anyway, yeah, he was in Chilliwack, did 4 albums with them, and then 3 albums with Headpins, and then passed away. So, and Darby Mills.
I see their albums, Chilliwack's albums, a lot at the record stores.
Yeah, some of them are good. Like it's hit or miss, right? Because they're not all great front to back.
Yeah.
But there's always 2 or 3, and I guess that's any album, right? Like there's always 2 or 3 decent tracks on all their albums. So anyway, that's my number 4. If you have nothing to add, I will move on. Chris, did that surprise you?
Not at all.
Okay. You knew I love that song, right? Like
absolutely.
In fact, I will say this about Cattle. What? That song because I'm a memory guy.
Litchfield?
Yeah, well, when you guys talked about that, I could so relate, minus the loud concert, and Chris could probably too, because and maybe it's down there too, but up here, definitely in Ontario, I don't know so much about Manitoba, but all the small towns and cities have fall fairs, right? So we had one in my hometown, Belleville, every September. And it was usually the week before school or the first week of school. What are you doing this week? I'm going to the fucking fair, man. And, and it was those buildings with animals, and they were doing competitions or crafts and baked goods. And then they had, like, the Saturday night, you'd have maybe a concert or the demolition derby, right? Or the Friday night, they'd have something else at the grandstand, and then a massive midway with all the questionable rides put together and manned by questionable people, and all the games where you could win all those shiny mirrors, roach clip feathers, all that shit. You
we
could
were talking about that not too long ago.
We talked about that in the chat, right? So
I had so many of those roach clip feathers, not knowing what they were fucking.
Right, and years later, we're like, I wish I had a roach clip. I wish I still had some of my feathers.
I had, I know it doesn't look like it. I had a mullet, like long hair at the time, and I would clip the fucking roach clips in, so it looked like I had the fucking feathers coming out my fucking
feathers
hair.
coming off your hair. Yeah, exactly.
I wish I had some of those mirrors still.
The point of the story is this song reminds me of those fairs. Between Whitesnake, and it's funny I mentioned Whitesnake and ZZ Top because they opened for them. Those two bands were always being played on the Music Express, the Zipper, the bumper cars, the Cobra, and Headpins. So, and maybe it was just the time, or maybe it was those carnies like that style of music. So I always digged it, right? You're eating some greasy food and winning some prizes, or spending your money trying to win some prizes and going on some rides, and all this fucking rock was playing, and you're like, yeah, this is awesome, right?
Yeah.
I don't see any problem being lovelorn towards the carny lifestyle.
No, I know. I considered it for a half a second, and then, I don't know if they're showering enough, but I'm probably not.
Or brushing their teeth.
They're like,
funny you mention those mirrors. I remember having the Motley Crue, actually. One of those mirrors hanging in my bedroom that I wanted the fucking Bracebridge Fall Fair. That's
cool. I had a Maiden one with Eddie, and I had a Highway to Hell one, and 2 of my buddies were wrestling in my bedroom, which sounds kind of odd, but we lost.
What the hell happened to Joe?
We lost Joe.
The Red Wings probably lost. He's trying to hide his emotions. The Red Wings probably lost.
That could be that. But yeah, so I'll just go on and hope he comes back in. Yeah, those guys hit the mirror and knocked it off the wall and broke it. And I was like, and we were in grade 8 or 9, and I was trying to be cool. I'm like, I almost cried. Right? I think you jerks, dickholes. Anyway,
dickholes.
I guess I'll go on with my next
$27 trying to get that.
Exactly. That $7 mirror cost me $30.
Yep.
Anyway, I'll move on so that we can speed up the time. My number 3 is Blue Rodeo Try. Same band that Chris mentioned. He actually mentioned this song is a really good one. It's off their debut in '87. I love Cuddy and Keeler. I love the band. Pretty much everything's been covered by Chris, so we will just
sorry, man.
No, and that's fine. I don't think I had anything else off the top of my head or in my notes that says that this should be said that wasn't already said when we were talking about them. So that's cool. That's good. It speeds up time. The top 2 are strange. I will get to some less strange in my honorable mentions, but my top 2 come from '89, and they are not Blow It High Dough. Blow It High Dough would clearly be on this list, but much like I did for Alice in Chains, I left it off because I had a feeling it might be on Chris's, and I also said it in my honorable mentions in the opening track episode, so I thought I'm just going to leave it off, even though if I was to do it true, it's on this list.
Hey, welcome back, Joe.
Fucking Chrome.
Plus, when I think of the Hip, even though we're doing 80s releases, and it did come out in '89, I think of the Hip as a 90s band because that's really when we were all jiving. So that said, these 2 songs that I'm about to say are both for 2 and 1 are both from '89, but they were listened to me in '89. So number 2 is Luba, No More Words. Ooh. You guys have probably never heard of Luba in your life. Ooh.
I've used the product.
I fucking love this song. It's a ballad. She is a Montreal-born Ukrainian solo singer. She won 3 straight Junos in the '80s for Female Vocals of the Year, and she is the only other 2 women have done that are Celine Dion and Anne Murray. So she doesn't get a lot of talk now because her career is basically over. She's not really doing anything. And she was pop. So she had a following, but it wasn't massive, right? And she never broke in your country. But I love her voice. She had 2 big ballads, actually, every time I see her picture. And this one, No More Words. And she did a cover of When a Man Loves a Woman that had some play here, too. But the Percy Sledge song. But, yeah, I don't know. There's something about this song. In fact, I told my list to my wife tonight at dinner before we started. And she's like, I know you love that song. I've heard you play it. Like, really? I'm like, really? She goes, well, I guess if you're being true to yourself. And oh, God. And she likes that kind of piece. But she hates Canadian content, too. So there is that. But, yeah, that's it. Okay. That's my number 2 is Luba, No More Words. That'll probably shock a lot of people. And the first one is way out there. It is on the infamous top 20 list that Dink always talks about. It is a song I want played at my funeral, and that's a little morbid, but it's definitely that. Wish You Were Here and Dust in the Wind. I would like to be played at my funeral. I've always loved this song. It's got some lyrics that refer to death because he's singing about a friend that died, and the song is Another Day by Paradox. It had a little bit of radio play in '89, '90, and then the band broke up, and they were from Quebec anyway, so like who cares, right? They're French. Sorry, French listeners. But yeah, there's something about this. I had the single. Remember the cassette singles?
Jesus Christ.
Right. I just adore this song, right? The singer is Sylvain Cossette, and it's a few other Frenchies. But yeah, I don't know. The album itself, and I didn't know this until I did research because I've loved this song so long, I didn't even bother to look up stuff about it. But it's not on any streamers. Yeah, I have to go to YouTube to listen to it, and I used to have it in a very special folder of MP3s, so I didn't lose it, right? because for years I couldn't find it after no one was listening to cassettes anymore. I'm like, oh, well, that single's long gone, right? The much of the album was co-written by Sass Jordan, who is a Canadian artist who was up and coming then. It just was a backup singer for the Box, Chris, I think, and because she's in the Closer Together video by the Box, right? So, and they were nominated for a Juno in 1990 as most promising group, along with Brighton Rock, who you mentioned, and they lost that 1990 most promising group to the Tragically Hip.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of cool. But yeah, that's it. That is my list of 4. Joe, you can tell us probably after we turn the camera off where the hell you went.
My Chrome died.
Oh, your Chrome died.
And just all of a sudden you guys are gone. I'm like, hey, I guess I'm out of here.
I guess my show's over. Anyway, so my honorable mention is a collection of songs. I'll just talk about them really, really quick. I couldn't do a list like you guys said without having Bryan Adams, and that's my wife gave me shit. She goes, I thought Straight from the Heart was one of your favorite songs. I'm like, Straight from the Heart is my favorite Bryan Adams song. So Straight from the Heart is in my honorable mentions, along with Criminal Mind from Gowan, who is in Styx now, obviously, and Dance Desire from Haywire, and they are in Eastern Province band. Love Changes Everything by Honeymoon Suite, but we've talked about Honeymoon Suite enough to it's overkill. But Love Changes Everything is my favorite song by Honeymoon Suite. But and we talked about this in the group chat. I think Chris sent some links. Just not about this show, but just when we were talking about Canadian music. The Spoons Nova Heart is on this honorable mentions list too. So there's 4 or 5, right? So I'm almost getting a top 10 in there. But I'm not going to talk about those songs. Those are just ones that were on the cusp that didn't make it, right? That's it.
No, this is great because, like I said, we have a long list of artists I need to check out here. So
I will say this because I get to close as a host. When we thought it was artists and not songs, my list was 1 was Bryan Adams, 2 was Triumph, 3 was Helix, and 4 was Honeymoon Suite because that was entire collections, right?
Yeah.
So that's the difference, right? No Triumph at all. And I love fucking Triumph. Love them. Like them more than Rush.
Well,
like,
I mean, with that being said, we tend to go song based, so
right. Yeah, and I think we should try to sway song based. It makes it interesting. But there's always going to be episodes. In fact,
also too,
episodes in the future, we're doing albums and artists.
I say albums are good because in a time when albums did matter, and they're not as big now, but when albums did matter, they were put together as a compilation. Because a lot of times artists would record, if an album was 12 songs, they'd record 23 songs, but only 12 would make it because cohesively they sounded the best together. And so, hence making the album. And so there's something to be said to say about picking albums at points.
And also with that being said, there are times when like an album, that album needs to be fucking spotlighted versus we may do a show on person X or artist X. But some of these topic-based, we focus on this album. Oh my God, from start to finish is amazing. It changed my life. So sometimes people out there, we're going to be mostly doing songs, but sometimes we're going to be spotlighting albums.
Yeah, you can't get away from it sometimes. You're right. Like,
I mean,
I was going to say some of the music I discovered in the 80s, especially I discovered off of compilation albums like Rock 82, Rock 83, like those K-Tel albums that came out. So
K-Tel, right.
And then if I liked the songs, I would have to actually, and back then it was a big deal, go and search those bands and try and figure out if I liked more than just that song on that.
And sometimes you did. Sometimes you found a gold mine. Sometimes you're like, wow, they put that person's best song on this one because they suck.
Yeah, that's very true.
Like,
well, gentlemen, this one's running
Paco have anything else but putting on the Ritz? Like, Jesus. We should wrap it up. Yeah, anyway, so that's it. That's we've covered this little minor part of Canada, and we will say hi-ho to the next episode. But you can find us on all platforms. We are Just Rank Pod. You can find us on YouTube, all the audio, wherever you find your favorite podcast. And for Chris, Joe, and Jimmy, I'm Dank, and we are the guys. You know what we say. Go fuck yourself.
Go fuck yourself.